Special Counsel Jack Smith, who's in the crosshairs with Donald Trump being threatened with prosecution and is going to appear before the House Judiciary Committee for apparently a closed-door interview. His lawyers, they're making the path a little bit easier for him because they just fired off a new letter to Senator Chuck Grassley responding to his false post that Jack Smith, or the FBI investigation known as Arctic Frost, about what happened on Jan 6 with the insurrection and which members of Congress were involved to try to slow down the certification. That investigation did not involve wiretapping. Wiretapping is the interception of communications, either digital or telephonic communications, as they're happening in real time, where you listen in, like wiretap, like The Wire, like watching all the movies with guys in a van, listening to people's conversation. That's not what Arctic Fire or Jack Smith did, as his lawyers just told Chuck Grassley before he goes in for his interview. It was instead a collection of toll information, phone records. You remember the old paper phone records that you used to get, if you cared to look, that told you date and time and place and duration of phone call? That's what they obtained after the call was placed. And it was only for a very limited amount of time, for a very limited amount of people who they believed were involved with the attempt to delay the transfer of power. Arctic Frost is back, ladies and gentlemen. You're here on Legal AF on Wednesday. Let's get to it. I'm Michael Popok. While you're here, I bring the receipts. You get a receipt. Hit a free subscribe button here on the YouTube channel. And I'm going to post the letter when I get my hands on it that was sent by the lawyers, Lanny Brewer, for Jack Smith to Chuck Grassley, the senator, who's the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He's going to be appearing before the House. Now, you might have heard a lot of squawking by MAGA when Pam Bondi was being interviewed as the Attorney General, where she was given softball questions about, did you know that members of the Senate and the House were had their phone wiretapped? You heard people say that's all untrue. Here's what happened. Arctic Frost was started by the FBI before Special Counsel Jack Smith was appointed by Merrick Garland. It was started by an FBI agent with approval by Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, and the head of the Department of Justice, Merrick Garland. At some point after they were done collecting information about what happened on Jan 6th, both at the local on-the-ground level with the insurrectionists and the leadership level above, and their efforts to try to interfere with the election, it was then eventually taken over by Jack Smith. There is a newly declassified document that Chuck Grassley has up on his website, and I'm going to show you a copy of it here, and I'm going to post it over on Legal AF Substack, which says that there were 8 GOP senators and 1 member of the House who had their toll records pulled from their cell phone carriers, which again only gave date, phone number, and duration. That's it. If they needed more, first they wanted to see who they were calling in a very short amount of time. It was only Jan 4 to Jan 7, and then it ended. They were looking to see who was being enlisted by the Trump side to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power. It's all contained in Jack Smith's report, which was released to the public. Now, among that group of people who had their toll records obtained, as opposed to wiretapping, was Senator Graham of South Carolina, Senator Halling of Missouri, Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama, and Representative Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania. There's others. Now, some of them all got offended because they're looking for a way to change the story and change the narrative. So people like Marsha Blackburn, who had her phone data obtained, went on Fox calling for Jack Smith to lose his bar license. Let's play that clip.
Jack Smith and some of his people pull all of our phone records to see who was talking to us, who we were talking to, how long those calls lasted, and where we were physically located when we received those calls. Now, there's a lot of speculation around how they were able to do this, how they were able to get our phone records from Verizon, why Verizon or AT&T did not challenge those subpoenas. and what they were really up to, what kind of investigation were they were doing. It's illegal, it's unprecedented, and I'm so pleased that Kash Patel has fired every single person that was involved in that CR-15 unit with Jack Smith. And indeed, what we want to do is see full transparency, full accountability.
And Pam Bondi was sent, was given a question, a softball question about, did you know that my phone records and those of other senators were wiretapped? Let's play that clip.
That's what we've been talking about when we refer to the weaponization of government. Operation Arctic Frost was an unconstitutional, undemocratic abuse of power. We are ending this weaponization. Our FBI is targeting violent criminals, child predators, and other lawbreakers, not sitting senators who happen to be from the wrong political party.
But the letter now that's come from Jack Smith's lawyers, Lanny Brewer, in advance. Now, just to be clear, for those that are joining the story a little bit late, Jack Smith has not yet been indicted. We know that Donald Trump wants him indicted. He's called for his indictment. At a press conference 10 days ago in which he said Jack Smith should be indicted. Jack Smith went and did an interview, a series of interviews now, where he's basically said, come at me. I'm trying to protect the Department of Justice. I'm apolitical. I did not investigate and ultimately indict Donald Trump because of my political background. I did it because of his crimes that he committed, like that. But they're very smart here for Jack Smith. They're not going to let, when Grassley posts up on his website, and we'll show you a copy here, Biden FBI spied on 8 Republican senators as part of Arctic Frost investigation. Grassley oversight reveals. Talking about tolling data and personal data. But of course, when that got out, it then became, this is how the lawyers for Jack Smith respond. A number of people have falsely stated that Mr. Smith tapped senators' phones, spied on their communications, or surveilled their conversations. As you know, toll records merely contain telephonic routing information collected after the calls have taken place, identifying incoming and outgoing call numbers, the time of the calls, and their duration. Toll records are historical in nature and do not include the content of calls. Wiretapping, by contrast, the letter continues, involves intercepting the telecommunications in real time, which the special counsel's office did not do. The subpoena's limited temporal range, the time range, just a couple of days, is consistent with a focused effort to confirm or refute reports by multiple news outlets that during and after the Jan 6 riots at the Capitol, President Trump and his surrogates attempted to call senators to urge them to delay certification of the 2020 election results. In fact, there's reporting that Giuliani made a mistake and left a voicemail message which indicated exactly that. He just put it on the wrong voicemail message, asking people to slow down the electoral count. He was trying to call Tommy Tuberville, and instead he called somebody else, and that voicemail message was obtained. That subpoena process is consistent. Robert Hur did the very similar toll record analysis related to Joe Biden, and they did it against Democrats when they were looking for a leak. And all of it was contained in Jack Smith's report. Much of it is contained in the Jan 6th report of the Jan 6 committee. So much ado about nothing, but I do appreciate that Jack Smith is a heavyweight and he's swinging hard in order to make his final appearance in front of the committee successful. And this will not be the last we've heard of Jack Smith. There's a reason he's on the air talking now as much as he can in interviews before any indictment, because it'll be harder to speak after an indictment. Here's a clip of Jack Smith.
This latest prosecution of the former director of the FBI. There's a process to secure an indictment. There's a process of predication, having some evidence before you do that. And again, I only know what I see myself in the media, but the career prosecutors, the apolitical prosecutors who analyzed this said there wasn't a case. And so they brought somebody in who had never been a criminal prosecutor on days' notice to secure an indictment a day before the statute of limitations ended. That just reeks of lack of process. And I think a lot of Americans do not see this as a political issue. Process shouldn't be a political issue, right? Like if there's rules in the department about how to bring a case, follow those rules. You can't say, I want this outcome, let me throw the rules out. That's why, frankly, you see all these conflicts between the career apolitical prosecutors I worked with, because they're being asked to do things that they think are wrong, and because they're not political people, they're not going to do them. And I think that explains why you've seen the resignations, you've seen people leave the department. It's not because they're enemies of one administration or the next. They've worked through decades for different administrations. It's just they've been doing things apolitically forever. And when they're told, no, you got to get this outcome no matter what, that is so contrary to how we were all raised as prosecutors. I think that's been the center of all the conflict.
So when you put it all together, what do you have? You have an aggressive defense strategy already being employed now, not waiting around for the indictment. We appreciate all that Jack Smith has done for this country. The history books will be kind to Jack Smith. And of course, they will indict Donald Trump. Until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Hit that free subscribe button, slide over to Legal AF Substack, and become a paid member for $6.77 a month. I promise you, we'll use it wisely. We'll give you an amazing return on your investment. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.